Hello and welcome to week 1 of Teams and Virtual Teams. This is our first lecture together. We will be going through, as I said in the introduction, group properties and dynamics. This is going to start to lay the foundation for what we will build in our knowledge of teams and virtual teams. So teams are going to build upon groups, and virtual teams are going to build upon those realities that we discuss in teams. If you've been following along in the material so far this week, you will have seen these goals for the week, these learning objectives. So just to reiterate those here, these are the things that by the end of this week we want to be able to accomplish and have in our long-term memory for as we're going through this course. So to begin, we're going to define groups. Now, groups are two or more individuals interacting and interdependent who come together to achieve particular objectives or a particular objective. These are important because all people operate in group settings in one form or another. So as a manager, if you're in that setting or if you're aspiring to be a manager, you need to know how to put people together in groups that function well, that have high productivity. If you're in a church setting, you need to know how to put together committees or different groups of people and know how the dynamics are going to progress. I'm a part of a group right now at my church. It's a pastor search committee. We're looking for a new senior pastor. And so we move through many of these group dynamics here in that setting. So this is just very important things for us to discuss as we think not just about the work setting, but life in general. Life happens interconnectedly with other people, and that oftentimes leads us into group settings. So groups can be formal, particularly in the work setting. These can be defined by the organization structure. So I'm a part of IT. That's a formal group that I'm a part of. You can think of the office. That was a formal group brought together for a particular purpose. They can be informal. These are neither formally structured nor organizationally determined. These are informal groups. Think of friends. There was nothing that formally brought these 6 individuals together, but their friendship for one another created this informal group that fluctuated and changed. So formal groups, really the acceptable behavior can be established by the organization and the organization structure, where informal groups are more flexible, they change, they adapt to conditions much more rapidly. As we continue to learn about groups, we have 4 different types of groups. The command group is determined by the organization chart. So I'm a part of IT. That is the group I'm a part of at Union University. Before, I was a part of the School of Adult and Professional Studies, where everyone here is studying. And so I had one command group that I was a part of. When I switched to this new position, I had a different command group that I was a part of. Those are determined by the organization chart. Now, there are also task teams. I'm a part of a task team currently. I talked about one that I'm a part of with church, right? The pastor search committee, that's a task team. We have a particular task that we are going to pursue, and once that is done, that group will disband. I'm on one with our university currently as we look to change a software system that we are using from one software to another. That task team has brought in people from IT and admissions and different parts of the university to come together to accomplish that task. There are interest groups where you affiliate to attain a specific objective of shared interest. One of my colleagues recently joined a group regarding sheepadoodles. And so she has a sheepadoodle. She's looking to get a second sheepadoodle. And so that interest in sheepadoodles is what has brought all of these people together. There can be also friendship groups. For a long time, I was a part of a group that got dinner together twice a week. We just kind of rotated who's home. We got dinner in. That has disbanded a little bit just because of us having kids and life getting a little bit more hectic. But for a number of years, for about 5 years, we got together with the same group of friends twice a week to get dinner together. That became a friendship group where we got along together and then we ate meals together. So why do people join groups? This is important to know in terms of your organization. Why is somebody going to try to be a part of this specific group within an organization as you manage people, but also in terms of life? Why is somebody going to come beyond the scriptural mandate? Why is somebody going to join a particular church? Or why is somebody going to join a particular small group in a church? Those are some of the realities that can come up when we talk about why people join groups. So there are some reasons. There's security. There is a comforting nature of being a part of a group of people. We see that even attested to in Scripture, right? A three-corded braid is not easily broken. We see some of those realities there within Scripture. So there's a security element for some folks. There's a status element for some people where joining a particular group can give a particular status or allow for particular privileges that folks desire. There can be a self-esteem element to where being a part of a particular group can build someone up to think more highly of themselves, not in a negative way, but in a very positive way. They can see their self-esteem grow. There's affiliation. So we are all social people. And so people enjoy regular interaction with others to varying degrees. And so if being affiliated with a certain group allows for that social interaction to happen. There's power in group settings. So what can be accomplished individually is often less than what can be accomplished when people work together. And so people can join groups to accomplish more. This makes me think of, I'm Southern Baptist, so this makes me think of the International Mission Board, right? Like we have the cooperative program and we are doing more together than each church could do individually by themselves in terms of taking the gospel to the nations. And then there's goal achievement. There are particular goals in mind that are just easier to accomplish when done in a group setting. Now, group properties. In this week's module, we're going to go through roles, norms, status, and size, and then we'll get to cohesiveness next week. But these all tie together, and when you get the right combination of established roles, strong norms, the right status of the group, right? People want to be a part of it, the correct size, and then cohesiveness. They enjoy being together. There can be great productivity in the setting that group finds themselves in. So to start with roles, every group is going to have both defined and somewhat undefined roles. So in most groups, there's going to be kind of a team leader, a group leader, where somebody is kind of taking charge of saying what is happening or what should happen next in the group. There's oftentimes going to be like a recorder or somebody that's kind of taking the notes or writing the short synopsis of group meetings. There's going to be sometimes if there's a financial component to the group, kind of a financial person. So there's going to be different roles within the group. Sometimes one individual will take on more than one role. And that can be fine, not a problem there. There can be some conflict that we'll talk about here in just a minute. But so it's not one role per person, but there's going to be roles that have to be filled for a task to be accomplished. And those will be divvied out, sometimes formally. This is your role, this is your role, this is your role. And sometimes informally, just based on what people naturally gravitate to. There's role perception, which is our individual. So I have a role. How do I view what I'm supposed to do in a given situation? That's my perception of my role. Then there's role expectations, how the other people in the group believe I should act in that same situation. So when role perception and role expectation are really in line with one another, that's where we get really smooth sailing, good productivity in that role. Where those things are in conflict with one another, where they don't line up as well, that's where we get friction, and we can have some storming aspects of the group where people are frustrated with one another because there's this conflict between perception and expectation. There's a psychological contract. So this is kind of an unwritten agreement between either group members and the other group members, or between employees and employer, where you're setting out mutual expectations. So if you're a manager at a company, you want to know what that psychological contract is of you to your supervisors or your higher ups, and between you and the people that you're managing. That psychological contract is something kind of you're aware of as you're moving through your role there. And then there's role conflict, where one person has multiple roles, and to adequately accomplish the requirement of one role forces you to not comply with the expectations of the other role. So the best example I can give to this is if the group leader also wants to be the group recorder, where they are leading a group meeting, but also trying to take notes all at the same time. When that is the case, then there can be this conflict where the group leader is responsible for kind of keeping the meeting going, asking follow-up questions, making sure that everybody's on the same page, and at the same time trying to write all that down. Those two things are very difficult to do altogether. So there's some conflict there. Lastly, before we take a quick break, we're going to talk about group norms. These are the acceptable standards of behavior within a group that are shared by the group's members. So every group is going to have norms. What are those acceptable behaviors? What are the expectations of what we should do and what we shouldn't do when we're apart and when we're together? So there are group norms, and when those are really strong, they really drive a lot of what we see happening in productive groups. When they are not strong, when they are either unclear or set really low, that's where we see productivity, when we see goal achievement really falling off, and a lot of that can be tied back to norms. Now, there are other factors that we'll get into in terms of status and cohesiveness, but even if those things are apparent, if the group norms are set low or they're unclear, it can be really hard to drive that group productivity that we want to see when we are leading a group or a member of a group. So we're going to take a quick break, and then we'll watch a couple of videos on the Hawthorne studies and the Ash studies, and then we will continue moving through these group dynamic discussions.